Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending tonight's business meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors. My name is Brad Gottschall, the Lower Paxton Township Manager, and as in typical fashion here, I'm just going to give a brief summary of tonight's agenda before the board begins. So under old business, the board will entertain a presentation of the 2019 Township budget before considering Resolution 18-58, formally adopting the budgets. The board will then consider Resolution 18-59, maintaining the annual compensation program and performance appraisal system for employees not covered by a collective bargaining unit. Finally, under old business, the board will act on a proposal from the township engineer, HRG, providing engineering and design services for the Stonebridge Stream Bank Restoration Project. Under new business, the board will consider executing an agreement with USIC Locating Services to provide locating and marking services for underground facilities. The board will then consider Resolution 18-57, amending a master lease agreement for the maintenance of services provided by Enterprise Fleet Services. And finally, before acting on improvement guarantees, payment of bills, and a declaration of consolidation of subdivided lots, the board will consider Ordinance 18-06, amending the Township's Uniform Construction Code by adopting and amending the 2015 International Building Code. And at this time, the members of the board are seated and prepared to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to the December 18th meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors. We will call the meeting to order and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to ask Mr. Judd to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have before us approval of minutes of the meeting of July 10th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the minutes of 7/10/2018 as prepared and circulated.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Before we take public comment, I would like to announce that prior to this meeting, the Board of Supervisors met in executive session to discuss a number of legal and personnel matters. With that, the microphone is open for anyone who would like to address the board on an issue not on the agenda tonight. Would anybody like to address the board on an issue not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to chairman and board member comments. Board members, any comments this evening? Robin? No? Oh, okay. Generally, Robin brings us up to date on all the things that have been going on. We appreciate that. Anybody else have?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that puts it in the hands of our township manager, Mr. Gottschall. Do you have a report for us this evening?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my report is rather brief. I just wanted to give the board and the township an update of what I've been doing. I've been trying to bring myself up to speed on township business, and I've been meeting with a number of people, actually too many to count at this point, trying to determine the township's standing in the world of municipal government and things like that. So other than that, I really have no particular points of discussion for tonight.
With that, we will move to old. Thank you. With that, we will move to old business, and we have before us Resolution 1858, and this is adoption of the 2019 fiscal year budget. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I will, if I may, take the podium and run a brief PowerPoint on the budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, can I?
Maybe the battery's dead.
We can't.
Okay. Well, we'll just try to work our way through it here, but through scrolling. So tonight, as the board is fully aware, the board will be acting on the 2019 municipal budget, which includes a number of funds. And the first slide here gives a brief overview of the funds at one clip here. And as you can see, there is a comprehensive 2019 spending plan of $58.8 million, and that obviously does not include any of the pension funds that the township has fiduciary responsibility of. The 2019 general fund is certainly balanced at $24,935,195. Of course, as we all know, the general fund is the primary source of all typical township business, and it also goes to funding the General Improvement Fund, the Fire Equipment Capital Fund, the LoSAP Fund, and also portions of the police and non-union pension funds as well. At this point, the board will act on tonight. The real estate tax millage is unchanged from 2018 at 1.95 mils. And within that 1.95 mils, the Fire Protection Fund receives 0.355 mils, and the library service portion receives 0.041 mils. The next fund of note is the State Aid Fund. This fund is funded through the Pennsylvania State Liquid Fuels Tax Act. And that is money provided to the municipalities through the Commonwealth on taxes received at the pump when you go to purchase gasoline. And that is used to maintain roadways and construction of roadways, maintenance of roadways, and also the purchase of a few public works pieces of equipment as well. The State Aid Fund here in Lower Paxton in 2019 expects to receive a little over $1.5 million, and we expect to expend a comparable amount. Also of note there, the last item is that the township expects to expend $980,000 in roadway paving, which keeps us on track to making sure our roadways are fully taken care of. The next fund here of note is the Fire Equipment Capital Fund. This is one of two important pieces of information here in the 2019 budget that were not initially included in the original documentation of the budget. As you recall, through budget meetings and other meetings, it was determined that the township should expend $2.3 million for the next phase worth of fire apparatus purchases. And that is encapsulated here in the Fire Equipment Capital Fund. This goes to providing apparatus for the three fire companies, and so that fund will take care of those purchases in the next years to come. The LoSAP fund is, don't want to say unique to Lower Paxton. Certainly other municipalities have something like this, but not many municipalities do. We are lucky here in Lower Paxton to have such a fund, which goes to recognize those volunteer members who have given a number of years of service to volunteer firefighting. The LoSAP fund Fund balance is expected to be $783,000 at the beginning of 2019, and an additional $101,000 will be provided to the fund in the 2019 municipal budget.
Brad, if I could interrupt, do we have 11 or 12 in the program? You know?
Ooh, I do not know at this point. I
Okay,
can
okay, it's probably
certainly
between
get that
11 and
information.
12, okay.
Okay, the next fund is the General Improvement Fund. This is for large capital improvement projects or long-term capital improvement projects. And going into 2019, the Capital Improvement Fund will, the General Capital Improvement Fund expects expenditures of approximately $1.4 million. $221,000 will be received from the general fund through a number of transfers for particular items, which the remaining $1.1 million will be received through various grants and contributions of other sorts. 2019 Friendship Center Fund. Of course, this is an enterprise type of an entity or fund of the township budgeting process, and a large part of revenues and things like that to the center are received through user fees, user charges, which primarily drives their annual budget. You see here that the 2019 operating fund for the center is expected to bring in $2.5 million in revenues and expend nearly $2.5 million in expenditures. That's good. The sewer operating and capital funds, as you can see here, going into 2019, expects revenues of nearly $17.5 million and expenditures of a little over $6.5 million. Of course, a good piece of information here for the board and for the public is that the sanitary sewer rate is expected to remain the same as 2018 at $153 a quarter. And this will allow us to continue to do good work there on that system. Expenditures for the sewer capital projects, as you can see, are expected to be $4,059,000, and on January 1st, 2019, the sewer capital fund is expected to have a fund balance of approximately $21 million. And of course, the authority already acted on that budget on November 27th. Obviously, the stormwater operating and capital funds have been something of much discussion over the past few months. The board certainly knows those details well, but for the general public's information, here is a good snapshot of what's going on in the 2019 budget. We expect that the stormwater operating fund will have revenues of approximately $2.6 million, with expenditures of approximately $2.5 million. That stormwater fee is expected to be $32 a quarter for residential users, and we expect to expend approximately $2.5 million, like I said, on capital projects through the stormwater program. Then the PowerPoint goes into a few basics of our taxing principles here in Lower Paxton Township. Unlike some municipalities, Lower Paxton earns the majority of its general fund revenues tax-wise through the earned income tax, the EIT tax. and that generates approximately $8.1 million. The real estate tax is the next highest earning tax, if you will, and that is anticipated to generate $5.9 million at a levy of 1.95 mils. And then rounding out the taxes that the township levies is the local services tax, which generates 1.15 million. Other than that, that's it, folks. Other than that, the township relies on a litany of other fees and charges to bring revenues in. But that's the bulk of how the township funds its operations. Good. Go to the next. This is an important slide to take note of. Over the 33 municipalities within Dauphin County, we see an average of about 2.6 mills, real estate mills, in 2018. That equation excludes 2 municipalities that have no real estate tax whatsoever, and 5 municipalities with a millage rate above 10 mills. Lower Paxton, as you can see, falls well below the average of 2.6 at 1.95 mils, and that has remained unchanged in 2017, 2018, and then going into 2019 as well. And as residents and taxpayers of Lower Paxton Township receive their bills, most people are unaware, but actually the smallest portion of that bill, goes to actual Lower Paxton Township operating needs. That 1.95 mils, as you can see on this list here, falls well below the remainder of the bill that you receive. A large portion of it goes to the Central Dauphin School District at 16.5 mils. The county receives 7.2 mils, and then of course, again, we receive 1.95. And that's just an example of what the typical or an average assessed valuation of home will net as a taxpayer going into 2019 with the millage rate remaining unchanged at 1.95 mils. That's the only other point of note, delineating from the original budget documentation, is a desire of the board to put into the general improvement fund $50,000 for communications improvements, $25,000 of which will come from the general fund, and the remaining $25,000 will be split up between the sewer fund and the stormwater fund. So they are the $2.3 million on the fire capital equipment fund and the communications increase. They're the only 2 changes from the original budget documents.
And we'll point out that $50,000 in communications is going to be for upgrades to the township's website,
Correct.
which has been improved but still needs significant more improvement. Correct?
User-friendly.
Make it more user-friendly, yes.
Great.
Okay?
With
Thank you
that-
very much.
yeah, thank you.
So, the good news is no increase in the millage rate for property taxes. And I see Mr. Weaver here, and the Lower Paxton Township Authority has managed to give everybody a break from any increase in sanitary sewer rates through very expert management. Thank you for that. So all that is good news. We do have a stormwater fee that we have to deal with, so fortunately we don't have other increases this coming year. With that, does anybody have any questions relative to the budget before we undertake a motion? Seeing no questions, is there a motion on Resolution 1852?
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we approve Resolution 2018-58,
Pardon me, 58, yes.
which is the adoption of the 2019 fiscal year budget as presented by Mr. Gutschall and recommended by staff.
Resolution 1858 has been motioned. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And seconded. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? I think it's worth repeating that at 1.95 mils, aside from the municipalities that don't have a property tax, Lower Paxton is either the lowest or next lowest in the county. I think maybe Derry Township was below us, but they're having an increase.
They were higher. We're the
They were higher. We are the lowest.
We should be
and
lowest at this point.
The reason for that is long-term solid management, and I think that we owe a debt of gratitude and an expression of appreciation to our department managers, to Mr. Wolf, Mr. Gottschall, and everyone who has worked on this budget. And I think that as a result of very solid management by this board, and by this board, I really mean Robin and Gary, who have been here for an extended period of time, have been able to keep expenses under control and keep taxes low. And they have done that for many years, and it's our goal to continue doing that going forward. So thanks to each of you for a job well done.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
it is a team effort.
That's why I gave credit to all the managers, each of the department managers, and certainly our finance department and everybody who has worked very hard to do this. A lot of credit to go around to be able not to raise the millage rate for 3 years, and before that there was only one small increase in 10, 12 years or something like that.
Yes.
So historically, Lower Paxton has been able to keep costs under control. With that, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2018-58, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, all in favor. So we have a budget for 2019.
Yes.
So now let's take a look at Resolution 2018-59, and this would be to accept the 2019 compensation program for the township's administrative employees. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this resolution as presented accepts for the maintenance of the annual compensation program and performance appraisal system for the year beginning January 1, 2019. The salary and benefit report for administrative employees prepared by the township manager. The report recommends that the board authorize a 2.5% base salary increase for administrative employees in 2019, with certain additional increases based upon position assignment. Again, this resolution impacts those employees not covered by a collective bargaining unit.
Right. Any questions from board members?
No, straightforward.
Is there-
I guess
well, go
let's outline quickly this formula that was established several years ago that takes area market survey as far as what other townships in the region are paying their employees for similar jobs. Then it takes rate of inflation or consumer price index and melds those two together and comes up with a formula for what would be in fair and just compensation. Does that summarize it correctly? Okay.
Yes.
And it's quite detailed and quite scientific, and looks like a pretty good way to do it. We want to make sure people are compensated fairly, and at the same time not spending a penny more than we have to, but to keep good people in Lower Paxton.
Any additional comments? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2018-59, which accepts the 2019 compensation program for the administrative employees not covered by a collective bargaining unit.
Motion to approve Resolution 1859. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Zumas. Any public comment? Any additional board member comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? I don't hear any no's. Under old business, item C, we have a proposal from HRG to provide engineering and design services for the Stonebridge Stream Bank Restoration Project. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, the township's engineer, HRG, has prepared the board with this proposal that you see in front of you tonight. which provides engineering and design services for the Stonebridge Apartments stream restoration project. Essentially, the project will deliver preliminary design drawings for township review and concurrence, preliminary opinion of probable construction cost, and a summary of potential funding opportunities. The proposal is estimated at a cost of $38,465.
Now, will that ultimately be coming from the stormwater fee?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And that's the first project for 2019?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
And I
Any-
guess, just to put an exclamation point on it, this is part of the stormwater management that we've been talking about. And this is to reduce excess runoff and excessive stream bank erosion. Now, it's sediment going into our waterways that our permit is being measured for. It's the reason the reason these projects have to take place. We're under a mandate to reduce sediment by 10% township-wide and 35% in Paxton Creek. And the last meeting we spoke on this, we learned that this project would reduce sediment by 207,000 pounds into Paxton Creek. So this is a big one, and this is kind of a concrete example of what all this stormwater management is all about.
Any additional board member comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the proposal from HRG to provide engineering design services for the Stonebridge Stream Bank Restoration Project in the amount of an estimated fee of $38,465, as outlined in the HRG proposal.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any public question or comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, that takes us now to new business. We have several items. Item A, we need to approve the underground facilities locating and marketing service agreement with USIC Locating Services. Mr. Weaver, we're trying to find some pipes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Stormwater is a hot topic tonight.
Yeah.
So, little background. First, I apologize. I was not in the office Friday or Monday, but this is a very fluid situation with the stormwater and establishing a lot of these funds and services, as you know.
Pun intended?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we just received the final agreement. Solicitor Stein has reviewed the agreement. Staff did provide comments back to USIC. So I didn't have time, again, to put a memo in your packet, so I'll just be brief but explain a little background. This is necessitated by the stormwater fee and the authority recently taking over the storm sewers, which Mr. Stein has just recorded the quitclaim deed, so it is official. We do own, the authority now owns the storm sewer system.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Also, the board is...
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Sorry, we threw you
yeah,
off.
that's right. Yeah, right. I'm thinking of a better Christmas present than that. You
Yeah,
really
really.
can't really get one. And as the board is very aware, the township recently approved the agreement for management services, where the township now also operates the storm sewer system in addition to the sanitary sewer system. So this agreement is with the township. Why it's on the agenda this evening. Public Works Department does not have an employee to mark storm sewers, and now that we've taken over the storm sewers, they have to be marked under the Pennsylvania One Call Act. So I spoke to Brad, and we entertained a third-party quote to compare to staffing costs, and we were very surprised and pleased that it was very favorable. This organization, USIC, currently also marks facilities for PP&L and for Verizon. So their costs are very competitive because they're already out in the township marking one calls for those two utilities. So the costs are estimated at $60,000 to $70,000. There's a range because the one call tickets change every year, depending on how much work is occurring in the township. Contractors are required before they dig to provide a one-call notice for utilities to market their services. So just referring back to the exhibit, you can see that they charge $13 a ticket. We estimate anywhere between 4,500 to 5,500 tickets a year. At $13 a ticket, you're looking at a range between 55 to 65,000. When we compare that to staffing cost, our overhead plus the hourly rate for an employee that would be qualified to do this work would be anywhere between $55,000 to $70,000 to do that for stormwater. The nice thing with this is we get a double benefit because they're marking storm sewer and sanitary sewer. So when you take 2 employees required to do both of that, you're doubling the staffing costs. Our staffing cost would be then doubled to do both. So you're looking at $120,000 to $130,000 to do this in-house, and their costs are going to be between $55,000 and $65,000. So it was recommended that this contract be provided to the board for their consideration. The only thing that I also want to just call to your attention is the customer responsibilities are very small. The only thing we have to do is provide them with maps so they can locate our facilities. It'll be electronic with HRG and GHD. HRG for the storm sewer system, GHD for the sanitary system. That's in the agreement as a customer responsibility. And the only other one is really just to pay the bill, which our finance department will do.
And make sure your maps are accurate.
That's true. Maps have to be accurate as well. This agreement will take effect on January 7th. They wanted to start on a Monday, so the billing cycle was as part of their business plan there. It's just easier for them to track that. So the agreement will be effective tonight, but their actual services will start on Monday, January 7th. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on the agreement.
Bill, are they from the state of Indiana or Indiana, Pennsylvania?
The state of Indiana.
State of Indiana, okay.
They're a national company. They do this service across the country.
So do they have employees that are stationed here in Pennsylvania, or will they have to come from Indiana?
No, they have employees here in PA that provide services for other utilities as well.
Okay. Okay.
Questions?
No, it's fine.
Okay, I see
You
no
don't have to
questions.
identify my motion.
Well, if you
Oh,
can get
one
two-
last thing I forgot to mention. I
Just gonna
apologize.
approve the agree-
The
exactly,
money
so-
is allocated to pay for this agreement. It's split between the budgets approved by the authority, 45,000 out of the storm sewer fund and 45,000 out of the sanitary sewer fund. So we have 90,000 allocated, but we expect the expenses to be anywhere between, again, 55 and 65.
Yeah,
It's the first time, so we wanted to make sure we had it covered, so,
right.
Right.
You have no track record at this point.
No.
So you have to establish one.
right.
But as they say, it's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
All right.
That's good.
With that,
You ready, Mr. Chairman?
I am.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the underground facilities locating and marketing service agreement with USIC Locating Services as presented and recommended by Mr. Weaver.
So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Zumas. Any public comment or question? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you.
You have a light duty tonight, one item. We're making Mr. Godshall work extra hard tonight. So that will take us to proposed resolution 2018-57. This would be amending the master lease agreement with ROC Leasing et al. To change the township's authorized signatory. That should be fairly routine, I would
Straightforward,
think.
right.
Mr. Godshall?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, board members, just to provide some clarity for members who may not have been present for the original execution, this resolution simply amends the original master lease agreement, which is providing the service of leasing for our municipal vehicles through Enterprise. It amends the original document to provide the new township manager, myself, as the signatory on that master lease.
Sounds good.
This is very straightforward.
Very straightforward. So being straightforward, you'd like to make a straightforward motion.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, I move we approve Resolution 2018-57 amending the master lease agreement with ROC Leasing et al. To change the township's authorized signatory to include Mr. Gutschall.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Took longer to read them.
Seconded by, yeah, it takes you longer, yeah. Seconded by Mrs. Lindsay. Any public question or comment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's ramp up the excitement and talk about amending the Uniform Construction Code. We have proposed ordinance 2018-06. Again, Mr. Gottschall and Mr. Stein can get in on this as well.
Tag team.
I'll actually defer to Mr. Solicitor on this
Okay,
matter.
very
please.
well. Yeah, what this does really is it adopts a 2015 code because the Commonwealth has already adopted it as
Yep.
the code in Pennsylvania. So it's up to all the municipalities that actually participate to adopt the version as their ordinance. And with that, if you would like, I will entertain a public hearing, and then the board can take action after the conclusion.
Please proceed.
Thank you. This is time and date set for the public hearing on ordinance 18-06, which would amend the township's uniform construction code by adopting and amending the 2015 International Building Code. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to be heard on ordinance 18-06? Seeing no response, Mr. Chairman, it would be in order at this time then to close the public hearing on ordinance 18-06, and the board may take action if it so desires.
I'm stunned at the lack of massive public input on that.
I am as well.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Well, I guess it does mean that the state made some changes to the building code, and updated it, so right, I mean,
Yeah.
they,
The International Code Council, actually, they'll make changes to the building codes as they draft them. And then Pennsylvania can pick and choose whether it wants
Right.
to adopt the next code or whether it doesn't want to adopt it. And
So
I
this-
think they're produced every 2 years, if I'm
I
not mistaken.
understand. So there were changes, and I actually had a reason to actually look into it. So as long as our building, code officers and the builders know what those changes are, those are not obviously reflected in here,
Correct.
but I think they had to do with energy compliances and improving energy conservation, things like that. So, I mean, this does have actual concrete changes with how buildings are being built in the township and statewide.
Concrete.
Concrete, yes.
No pun intended there either.
Yeah.
We're really into puns
Although
tonight here.
There's probably very little concrete involved. So those aren't reflected here, but as long as the builders and the enforcers know.
I'm sure they're all well aware of it.
Yeah, that would be their responsibility.
That's exactly right. I'm sure they are.
Okay, with that, we have before us proposed ordinance 2018-06. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve ordinance 2018-06, amending the township's uniform construction code by adopting and amending the 2015 International Building Code as presented by Mr. Gutschall and confirmed by Mr. Stein.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Judd. Any public comment or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we will move to subdivision and land development plans. And I see we actually have a consolidation here as opposed to a division, which also appears to be straightforward. I do not see Mrs. Zerby. So does the board, we've had this in our packet and had a chance to look at it. It also appears to be rather straightforward. But are there any questions?
Just for Mr. Gutschall, is there anything that's outstanding? It looks like it's very straightforward. There are no innuendo. Okay.
Very straightforward. Yep, as you can see on the screen, it's simply removing an imaginary line
Right.
and allowing the owner to do as they see fit on their new property, as the
Okay.
case may be.
This one's rather straightforward, Mr. Chairman.
As they see fit in compliance with the zoning code.
Good point.
And
building
the new
code.
building code, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the consolidation of the previously subdivided lots for Marlon and Eileen Fisher at 513 Kingston Road.
So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Improvement guarantees, and let me get to that here.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm assuming that Ms. Smith got this. I was reading from our printed agenda, which said Marlon and Eileen Fisher, yet on our other printed copy, it's Kiter, and I'm not sure which is the correct name.
Documents say Kiter.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's Kiter,
Okay.
Because the actual declaration
says Kiter. Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to reframe the motion, or are we?
No, if everyone's acceptable, is willing to accept the change of name,
Okay, we'll
the
just,
chair will accept that.
we'll just stipulate it's Kiter and go from there.
Yes,
Correct.
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Number of letters of credit, et cetera, under improvement guarantees. Again, everything appears to be relatively routine. Does anybody have any questions?
I just had a question with the Autumn Oaks Phase 2. It says street dedication. So are we taking that street over? But yet it says it still has an amount. It hasn't been decreased. It says new.
It's a letter of credit being provided to
Well, it
us.
says
Right.
street dedication new.
It's
Okay.
new, it's a letter of credit.
Okay. I was a
The-
little confused on the street dedication, because usually,
Yeah.
It's the 18-month maintenance guarantee that they have to put up in order for us to actually take the street.
Street.
But we're not voting on taking the
we're not
street.
voting on taking the street.
No, we're not taking
Okay.
the street.
Okay, that's why I was a little confused, because it said street dedication.
Well,
so
that's
what
because
confused.
that's what it's for. It's
For.
to guarantee
Okay.
the functionality and the maintenance of that road for the next 18 months. And if there are any problems, that maintenance guarantee can be used to fix whatever needs to be fixed if something goes wrong in that period of time.
That's why we're
Okay.
getting that letter of credit. for
Right.
another- Right, and they're
Okay.
just establishing that.
Okay, but it's not accepting any dedication
Okay,
of
that's where I
streets
was a
on,
little
in and of itself.
confused. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the improvement guarantees and development agreements?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move, we approve the 7 improvement guarantees. For each other new letter of credits, there's an extension, there's 2 reductions, another release, and then 1 more increase. So, yeah, all 7.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That brings us to payment of bills of Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Madam Treasurer.
Yes, I make a motion, we pay the bills for Lower Paxton Township Check Register and the Lower Paxton Township Authority.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to announcements. And before we close, I would just like to take 30 seconds and reflect on what all has occurred around here this past year. We have had a lot of changes in Lower Paxton. If you go back to the early part of the year, we had Mr. Kashiba come in as our new public safety director. We had Mrs. Lengel come in. Lengel. Oh, I'm going to pay for that. Mrs. Lengel come in as our human resources director. George Wolf, after 28 years, decided to retire, and Mr. Gottschall came in to that role. We have a new director at the Friendship Community Center. Sort of the low point of the year was the loss of our good friend and colleague, Mr. Hawk, back in July. But we do have Mr. Zumas as our newest supervisor, and that's a positive, and we've greatly appreciated having you on the board, Norm. Thank you. And then, of course, there's the work of all of our directors. Mr. Weaver sitting here with stormwater has been a big issue for this year and will continue to be, not to mention the work of all of our dedicated employees. And the board would like to express our deep appreciation to all those who work for Lower Paxton Township for hanging in there with us this year. We have a lot of new faces and a new team in place, and the stage is set for what I think is going to be a great 2019. So next year will be the cat's meow. I had to do it. Does anybody, now that I've taken us down that road, does anybody have any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would move for
You
adjournment.
move for adjournment. Second. Merry Christmas, everybody,
That's
and
what I was
happy
gonna
holidays.
say.
Meeting adjourned. I had to get in a cat.
You.